Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, hi, I go by Cozy. I make cozy cottagecore Minecraft builds and often also make cinematics, whether they be funny or maybe more on the pretty aesthetic side. Recently, I have had a lot of people asking me how I actually make my Minecraft cinematics. So today we're pulling back the curtain and going full behind the scenes. I am going to show you how I recently recreated a scene from my favorite movie ever, Pride and Prejudice from 2005, featuring Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadyen. And that one scene where it's like the misty morning where Darcy's walking across the field towards Lizzie, all dramatic and intense and in love. So we're gonna tweak shaders, I'm gonna film with Flashback, and then edit it all in Davinci Resolve. Oh, and this is also my very first video outside of streaming with my little PNG tuber hanging out in the corner. So hi from Mini-Me, who will also be silently judging my editing choices as we go along. Without further ado, let's get going. So I'm in this lovely world. I like this area. It's flat. There's some trees around. I did copy a few of these trees over, so it is slightly similar to the screen grab from the film. There's like some bushes and stuff on the side. Now I need to find the right time to set it at for filming. So right now we're set at like right at dawn. Time is set to 0, but I would like the sun to go more on this side, as there's like just a sliver of orange in the sky during that section of the film. So let's see what 12,000 looks like. Okay, yeah, so that's a lot closer. 13,000 I think is gonna be fully dark. Not bad though, that's pretty close. I want that fogginess, so let's do time set 12,750. I'm liking that vibe. That's, I think, too light. So I think what we're gonna go with is the time being set to 12,750. And I have the time frozen, obviously. Now this is default BSL settings for my shader. I would like to mess around with the settings and try and get the shader itself as close to the screen grab from that scene that I have next to me as physically possible. It likely won't be exact, but we're gonna do our best. So it has very pale blues, quite cold, but then with just a hint of orange through. Now, I have distant horizons on in my footage. I do not believe this mountain will show up. I think it's gonna be too far. That is a-okay. We'll definitely get this tree line. That's the main goal here. Let's go into our shader settings, video settings. Okay, first, there's a whole lot of fog in this scene, so let's go ahead and get that taken care of. So I'm going into environment, and every shader is different as far as the settings are concerned and how you can tweak it. I use BSL the most out of all of them. I know there's a lot of people out there that are diehards for other shaders, and that is totally fine. BSL, I love BSL. I'm mostly gonna be sticking with that. And I do really like how you can customize a lot of things about it. But in my experience, most shaders have a lot of settings you can tweak. So fog. Overworld fog density, let's just see what it looks like all the way cranked up. Okay, that's much better since the distant horizon's having to reload. That's definitely more that dense fog that I would like. Now I'm looking through the options. Now I do like to set the shader sun and moon on. I don't think we won't need the aurora for this. Light shaft. So the screen grab, because of the fog, there's quite a bit of haze to it. And for a lot of my videos, I don't really like a lot of haze. I want it to feel very clear and crisp. But for this, obviously the romanticization, we definitely need it. So light shaft strength is set to 1, more than I normally do, but let me see, cranking it all the way up to 2. I like that. It adds a little extra to it, just a little haze around the flowers. So let's go to color, and then I'm gonna mess with lighting color. And with BSL, it has it set based off the time of day. So let's set it to evening and see what happens. Okay, so you have red, blue, green, and intensity. The screen grab is very blue, so we're gonna try and emulate that as much as possible. No set way of doing this. You just kind of have to go with it little by little. Okay, so that's them canceling each other out for the most part. That's a little spooky. That's a little too gray for what we're wanting. So let's move up the blue. Okay, better. Still a little spooky though. Let's maybe add some green and see what that does. Because it's like a light blue-green. Okay, that's more the correct tone, but it's still a little too dreary. I want it to be a little brighter. Okay, that's too green. Better. Okay, so I'm liking this green tone, but it needs to be brighter. It's still too dull. There's definitely a lot of white in the haze because it is, I believe in the film, like just now, very, very, very early morning. Let's see what happens if I just push the intensity up. So it's set to 1.20. Okay, so this is kind of that haze that I was wanting. It's probably a little too much white now. So let's see, it was at 1.20. Let's try 1.80. That could be a little more intense. Let's try it at 2. Okay, we're getting there. Still would like it a little more intense. Maybe 2.25. And now that it's brighter, I'm thinking we need more blue rather than green. Okay, now we're cooking. That is looking much more close to the film. Let's try a little bit more blue. And then perhaps a smidge less green. It is Editor Cozy from the future. I just wanted to pop in really quick and say that in looking back on the footage, I think the setting that I reached at this very point is actually the closest to the screen grab, but I did not quite realize the saturation level differences between my vertical monitor and my horizontal monitor. My reference photo at the time of filming this was on my other monitor and they looked quite close. Now in editing, I realized I was actually a little far off by the end. However, I definitely get it to that point in post for when I put it into Davinci Resolve and do my final color grading. So live and learn. I'm figuring this out as I go too. But yes, I realize now that you can actually get it quite close just with the shader. I should have just had it a little bit more green and a little darker. So live and learn. Okay, that's it. Just wanted to pop in and say that. I think that's pretty close. Let me check the intensity one more time with the colors having shifted. Okay, yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with that. So there's our color grading. And now that we've finished maybe we could move the sat up 1.10 and match the vibrance. I do want my depth of field on, definitely. I'm not sure quite how strong. That'll also add to that kind of foggy haze. So depth of field, if you're not familiar with it, it's gonna add that kind of blurry, unfocused look around everything that isn't right like in the middle of the screen. This shader has a different type of focus mode, so the auto where the focus will be right in the middle, but you can change it through manual and move it. But for right now, we're good with just auto. I think that strength is fine. Any higher, like if we put it way high, it's like way too much, obviously. So you gotta be careful with the depth of field strength. We'll leave it at 1. I think that is a respectable amount. For this specific scene, I think that's about it. I would like the fog to be a little more, to like come forward a little bit more, but when I film, I always move the field of view way down. Kind of like it to be at about 30, to be honest. Yeah. So you can see the fog obviously looks a lot closer. We have that. Now we're gonna film. So it would be like, we start it. Once you're done with recording and all the movement that you want, you hit finish and it's gonna prompt and you can name your replay, save it. And now we'll go back to the original recording that I made when I was creating the video. So this is gonna be Mr. Darcy. Now we are in our flashback that we recorded. It's obviously just a singular shot, so it is quite simple, but we're going to go to, so for instance, you can drag, now this is not a flashback tutorial. If someone would be somewhat interested in that, let me know, of course. But this is just for the sake of this specific video, how I did this. So I like this angle. We still have those trees I placed. Since the entire intention is for this to be a short or a reel, I'm going to go ahead and change the aspect ratio, which is, it's nice. You can do that in Flashback. You cannot do that in Replay Mod. So I can see exactly how I want it. We still have our zoomed in field of view, and I can see the path in which Frenchie takes. Then I went in and I added an element of camera, which is right here. I get to the starting point. So when he is on the ground, I started my camera keyframe, and this one is specifically a hold type. And so that means the camera is not going to move anywhere. It's going to stay exactly where it is, stationary, until my next keyframe. And originally when I was planning this, I thought I would maybe do a couple of cuts to me as Elizabeth, but I decided to keep it simple and axed those. So we're not going to cover that today. But so I have this set as a held camera keyframe, and then just natively, you can see the speed in which he's walking. Even just at the default speed, it kind of looks like he's zooming compared to, you know, the film, which is very dramatic and slow-mo in a way. I'm going to add then a speed keyframe. So you would do add element and select speed, which I have right here. And I just lined it up exactly with this camera keyframe. So then I would just do add keyframe. And I set this one to a hold type as well. So it would maintain that speed until I told it otherwise. And so then it looks like this. Much more dramatic without it feeling like exact slow-mo. A very subtle thing that honestly I think only I would notice when I was making this, but you know, if you like that as well. I did add a very minor camera shake, which you can do by doing add element, just like the others, camera shake. And so now this is on this third line for me. I set it as hold as well, just lining it up for the most part with the other two keyframes for the camera and speed. This is a very, very minimal camera shake. I just wanted it to feel maybe a little bit more organic rather than just a solid stationary shot as if the camera was on a tripod. But I set the frequency to 0.5 and the amplitude to 0.1. Frequency is how often it shakes, and then amplitude is how much it shakes, like how big it shakes. Very, very minimal, almost non-existent, but I like it. And you can kind of see it here in my camera in the corner. You can see where the borders of it just slightly move. I don't know. If anything, it feels kind of like it amplifies the breeze in the foliage. Again, it's a tiny detail. No one else probably would have noticed, but I did it anyway. But you can make it very dramatic. So if I wanted to say do like something crazy, I don't know, we'll just drag it. This is what it looks like. Woo! Something crazy. But that's a cool little feature in Flashback. I do use that a lot for my first person, like POV shots particularly, because it looks like you're holding a camera. Okay, so that's pretty much it. When I was setting this up, I did have the field of view set to manual, and I moved the shader field of view over into the corner just so Frenchie is not blurry here. I can show you how I do that really quick. Under your shader settings, and then go under camera. Under depth of field config, you would set that auto, at least for BSL. I can't tell you for any other shader, but if they have a similar aspect to it, I can set the focus mode to manual, and then I can move the X around. And so that one, I just toggled it until it felt right. See, he's automatically less blurry there. So I just shifted the X focus over a bit. Yeah, and so that's how I did that. And then once I was satisfied with this shot, I set my in and out points. I always add a little extra on either end just for wiggle room. So you can set your in point with I on your keyboard and then your out point with O, and then you can export. And I always export my flashback renders in 4K. So sometimes it likes to default to 1080, but I do export in 4K for the grand majority of my cinematics. I don't need to record the audio. Obviously, we won't need it for this. And so I keep this unchecked. However, the fact that Flashback can record your game audio is so nice. It's so nice. I use it very often. Before, with just replay mod, I would have to get my angles set in the camera, and then I would have to go into Audacity, a separate audio recording, and then have my replay play through with Audacity recording my game audio at the time, and then I would have to manually sync them up. So the fact that you can record audio in Flashback is so nice, an absolute lifesaver. Then you just start your export and it will load, and once you have your video, then we're going to switch to our video editor, in which I use Davinci Resolve. I do currently have the paid version of Davinci Resolve, but nothing I'm going to show you today requires the paid version. The free version is very, very, very powerful. And I only recently, like in the past month, bought Davinci Resolve because some of my other editing work outside of my own content creation, we use a nicer camera, and the codec in which that footage is filmed is not capable of working in the free version. But that's because it's a lot more like professional. If you have like MP4s and stuff like that, you definitely don't need it. So yeah, highly, highly, highly recommend Davinci Resolve. Okay, so then let's switch over to that. I have my media here. I am going to take the final exported footage for that shot, which is right here, and drag it onto the timeline. I will set the start point, so that is good enough. He's on the ground and now walking forward. And then I'm going to stop it right before he starts to turn around. So I will trim that, and I can trim it by doing Control Shift in the right bracket. And now I do have the audio from the song, which is Liz on Top of the World by Dario Marianelli. One of my absolute favorite score pieces ever to ever exist. I absolutely love it. So I have my music. I personally like to have a full musical motif like conclude. I think maybe I can show like just a couple of seconds of the audio, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. At the very end of how I've cut this, it has a specific melodic line, and I personally like my music to fully resolve for a loop. That's just something that bugs me. It can't happen all the time, but for this one I definitely wanted it to happen, so I timed the video to match that perfectly. So at the very end you'll hear it does ba-da-da, right? It ends that melodic phrase, and then that makes it feel like a more completed loop for me. So if I loop it, yeah, instead of it being like in the middle of the phrase, but that may be just me being too picky. But my background is in music, so I had to. Anyway, unfortunately no more music in this video, just because I want to keep that to a minimum. So we're gonna mute that for now. Go ahead and lock this track, and I do want this video to last the full span of this phrase, so that means we need to slow it down a little bit more, and I think that's completely fine. I have the clip selected, and I'm going to go to speed change under video. Let's just see what it looks like at 70. Okay, that's too much, which is fine. 75, that's better. Maybe 80? Almost. I just wanted to line up as close as physically possible to my audio track. Let's do 83. Okay, that's almost there. 82. Okay, that's good enough. It will be perfectly in line with our full clip for a loop. And yeah, at that speed, it still looks completely normal. We still have a slight breeze effect without it looking like full slow-mo. It feels effective for the scene. Here's the main thing, color grading. We have our clip, which I'm going to just pop right on top of it so you can see. The clip is a lot more green than what I ended up with the shader, but that is okay. We can fix that now. I'm going to go into the color tab. Now here's a fun thing about DaVinci, because I'm not a professional color grader. I've definitely been working on my skills manually color grading, but for something like this was a huge help. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it feels a little too intense, this tool, but for this specific clip, oh man, it really, really worked. We have our little Mr. Darcy here. However, we're gonna highlight our footage, and then I'm going to right click on the screen grab from the film. And I'm going to click shot match to this clip. And then you let it think for a while. Boom. Look at that. Look at that. That is so cool. So that was immediately a huge help for me. You absolutely could do this manually. You would just want to make the air around, or like the sky, feel a little more teal rather than a light blue, so you can add more green and everything within the color wheel. But this was infinitely easier. So another reason why I highly recommend Davinci Resolve if you are a content creator of any kind. And this tool, again, is part of the free version, so that's super cool. Now we don't need this clip anymore. We'll still use it as reference, but gonna get that out of the way. Now, one thing that the shot match didn't quite do, I would like for this little orange space in the sky to be a little bit more vibrant, just to be a little closer to the footage. Now, you know, we're within the shader constraints. We can't have that perfectly crisp orange streak across the sky like in the film. We're gonna try and at least just intensify this orange streak a bit. We're gonna go back into the color tab, and I don't want to mess with this color grading on my original clip. Like, this is perfect. If I accidentally mess up moving forward, I don't want to have to redo anything. So I'm going to add a serial node. So you right click on it, go to add node, add serial. This is basically like an overlay of the original clip. So anything I edit on this node, we will see. And if for some reason I mess it up, I can just delete that node and start back at this point. Since what I'm wanting is going to be quite subtle, I'm not too worried about it being absolutely flawless editing, which is great because I am for sure an amateur, but I think it will be effective for what we're wanting. It's not that serious, you know? Under the color tab, we have our second node selected. I'm going to go to the window tab here. And for the sake of what we're doing, I think a circle works just fine. So I click this, and so now we have this little selector window that is circular, obviously, because we picked the circle. Now you can edit this down and move it around and stuff. So I am going to kind of get it like an oval shape, just so we can intensify this section right here, because we have the orange. It's just a little too muted for what I'm wanting. I'm gonna try and cover this space, but not too much. Yeah, kind of like that. That works. And so now I can color grade just this little circle. We're gonna go to the primary color wheels, which I get by clicking this and having this little circle right here selected, the color wheel circle. And now I'm just gonna fiddle with it. Again, I'm an amateur, but I want it to be more orange, so I'm gonna start just pulling some of these color wheels more orange and see what looks the most natural. Automatically, you can kind of see how the color will shift within this circle, and it kind of fades out into this little border that I stretched out. This is me affecting the gain. Now I'm instead testing out editing the gamma, and that feels a little more subtle to me, which is good. So I'm just pulling this little center dot more towards the orange section of the color wheel. Now for temp, since obviously the sun is orange and quite warm, we could use that to intensify the orange as well. So as you can see here, when I drag it all the way to the side, it is quite intense, but just do it a little bit here. And then let me click out and see if that's a little too much. It's a little too much because I'm seeing it over the trees, but I can also just make our area of effect a little smaller. Okay, not bad. Let's move it a little bit. I might make it skinnier. Okay, not bad, not bad. Make the fade out a little stronger. Yeah. And now one other thing I would like to do for just on top of what the program set the color grading for to match the shot to the film, I'm gonna add another serial node, and we have it to where we still have our little orange circle that's still on the top. So now I'm editing the middle. I would like to just see what it looks like with a slightly higher contrast. There we go. Let's see. Okay, yes, I think that looks closer to the film. It was just a little too washed out. Just to make the darks a little darker. Yeah, let's do it like that. Okay, and with that in mind, I feel like now our orange is maybe a little too much, so I'm going to knock the temp intensity down just a smidge. It's still elevated, but a little bit goes a long way. And then I'm just gonna fiddle with the shape a little bit more. Okay, good. Okay, yeah, I like that. It's subtle, but I think it makes a difference. So if I delete this, then I bring it back, I think that definitely helps. Same thing with the contrast. So this is with the contrast, without the contrast, with the contrast, without the contrast. That's pretty much it. Okay, and so this is the original edit I made. Looks like I was even more intense with the contrast, and I do think that that was the right call. So in that case, you know, I would just go back into the color tab and amp up the contrast a little more. Maybe intensify the shadows just a little bit, and maybe even bring the highlights down just so this foggy center isn't too bright white. Yeah, something like that. So again, you just gotta fiddle with it and see what you like. See, that's much closer to what I had originally. DaVinci already has a lot of text and font options. However, for this one, I wanted to be pretty specific and have something that felt old-fashioned serif type font. So I went into Canva, I made a little thing for the text overlay that I wanted. I exported it with the transparent background. And then I just took my image and put it on top of my footage and centered it. Since Frenchie is walking on the bottom half of the scenery for the grand majority, I felt I could put the text right in the center. I might overlay a similar piece of music just so you can get the vibe, but if you want to see the full thing, obviously go to the related YouTube short, which will be linked in the description. So there he goes. I mean, I know it's Minecraft, so it's super silly, but that's pretty on the nose, right? I think that's pretty good. It honestly makes me almost a little giddy just because I love this movie so much. And then finally, we have a before and after of each stage in this editing process. So first, we have absolutely no shaders. Then we have our default shader settings. Then we have our edited shader settings. And then our final color grades and edits in DaVinci. I love it so much. And that's the whole process. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, whether you're here because you want to make your own Minecraft cinematic, or you're just, you know, a little nosy in the best kind of way and wanted to peek behind the curtain. I really hope you had fun. I'm testing out more casual, sustainable videos so I can upload to my channel more often between my more like highly edited videos, for instance, like cubies. So I would love to know what you think down in the comments. You love it? Maybe you hate it? Maybe at least mildly amused? Of course, all answers are totally valid. And hey, if this flops, it flops, that's okay. At least Frenchie looked absolutely fabulous as Mr. Darcy. So I hope you had a good time. I certainly did, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.